If you'd like to be able to listen to the show without ads and have full access to bonus content, that's an option. To find out how, please go to dogmanencounters.com/podcast. Tonight's guest wishes to remain anonymous, and for understandable reasons, too. With that in mind, I'm just going to call her Abby. Abby, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on, Vic.
Well, thanks for being here. I know this isn't easy, as the listeners are going to hear. It's not easy at all, but it took a lot of courage for you to come forward like this and share your experience.
Yes, definitely, but it will be good for me to share.
Well, I hope it really pays a lot of dividends when you do this, and I'm pretty sure it will. But having said that, first things first, please give us a brief bio on yourself, of course, being vague.
Well, I'm in my mid-40s right now, and I'm a fitness teacher, instructor that helps people to get in shape. And also I was a over 20-year-old teacher as well as preschool teacher.
Wow, sounds like you stay busy. It's a wonder you have time to do anything else.
Yes, and it pays off being busy and knowing about the health and human bodies and childcare and everything like that.
Yeah, it sure does. Abby, due to how intense your encounter was, you've really suffered over the years since it happened. What kind of negative effects have you been dealing with, though, as a result of that encounter?
Well, with my encounter, it had two big, huge negative effects. First, I was traumatized by the event itself, and also the aftermath of the event. The first one, I became like the fear of the dark. I could not, after that encounter, I could not stand going into the dark. I always feel I have to watch over my shoulder, and I even have to like self-talk myself. I'm like, you're being silly, just keep going. Even to the mailbox, I just don't like being in the dark by myself. And then also the aftermath, it was with the Men in Black, kind of looking, if I open my mouth about this, my encounter, what is the consequences for that. And also it kind of changed my viewpoint of adults, because this happened when I was a child, and how the adults reacted and to my encounter, it kind of changed me personally, saying, hey, adults are kind of they don't really want to help you out. You have to be careful what you say. And so it kind of makes me not trust more of the adults that like I had before.
Well, after the way the adults treated you when you needed them most, I can understand why you developed those feelings. Shame on them for giving you the cold shoulder the way they did. And unfortunately, when a dogman that you encounter takes a friend's life the way it did your friend's life, it's totally understandable why you'd be afraid of the dark. Totally understandable. But before we get into that, I'm wondering, until now, is it safe to say that that encounter ruined your life, or would you say that's not the case?
That's a hard one, because it didn't really ruin my life, but it kind of scarred me in a way that I do things differently or think things differently than I have been. And also a little bit about myself, if I kind of, over the years, I just stuffed the encounter down. So I never shared it with anybody at all, because I always thought people will think I'm crazy.
Well, when you consider all the elements of what happened that night, I can understand why you did that. But until recently, the only person that you had shared that with, like you said, was your husband. But was it difficult to keep it in like that, or are you glad you did that?
I'm glad that I opened up, and at first, I did not know what a dogman what it is, even with this occurrence. And because of my husband, loved listening to your show and I heard other encounters, it kind of helped me bring it out, saying, hey, that's what I encountered too. So it helped me then knowing I'm not the only one who have seen this. And also helped me, also helped me identify as what happened. Because I never knew that Dogman existed. I did not know what a Dogman was or anything like that. And I always refer it to the beast. That's the only way I could describe it is the beast. And then because of my husband and he started teaching about the Dogman. And I'm like, hey, that's exactly what I experienced. And it helped me to open it up to my husband. And because of his encouraging words, I'm willing to open up to the public about it, what I encountered as well.
Well, like I told you before, I'm so glad you are opening up to the public about this encounter. I think it is going to help you quite a bit. And considering how your encounter happened well over 20 years ago, how long was it before your husband told you what it was that you saw, that you encountered?
Well, I've been with my husband for over 8 years. And when we were dating, we started listening into cryptids, like Bigfoot, Dogman, and UFOs and stuff like that. And it kind of, I'm like, hey, and he kind of agreed on, I experienced a Dogman as well. So it was kind of nice, that we were bonding about it because I'm like, hey, he did not view me as crazy, and he took what I experienced as a face factor, and also talking to my husband kind of helped me realize on certain elements of my experience, about that bridge, and how it kind of silly that when I thought about the bridge, the importance of the bridge when I was a child. But also he helped me realize that the Dogman did not want to hurt me. He was just kind of toying with me, just trying to scare me, which he accomplished.
Well, understandably so, after it did what it did to you. A few nights ago at 1:20 a.m., or right around 1:20 a.m., you sent me a text message because you're really in a bad way. What was giving you so much trouble?
Well, my husband finally opened up. He said, I think you need to talk to Vic about what you encountered and to help it get you off your chest. And like I said, I felt like since I was a child, I stuffed my encounter down deep. And I did not share this with nobody. I didn't even share it with my parents. I didn't share it with anybody because I was afraid of being viewed as crazy, and also the consequences of I'm not supposed to do what I'm supposed to be knowing on what I was supposed to do, like sneaking out at, middle of the night. But since I opened up to you, Vic, it was like that wound being refreshed open and exposing all that trauma. And ever since I started having nightmares of if they encountered, it was just like me, that my mind just kind of replayed it over and over in my head. And it kind of got feared into my fears of feeling like, I'm being scared of the dark, kind of like looking at the outside in the woods. I was like thinking I will see a pair of yellow eyes again gleaming at me, even though I know it's silly. And I just started feeling like I'm like the child again, fearing of the boogeyman, which I kind of felt like he actually existed from, the Dogman. You never hear about that. But it was like the boogeyman came into real life with me, and I just feel like just opening up that just rehashed the old wounds that I stuffed down deeply, but it's in a good way also because it kind of released the kind of scar tissue over that wound and let me heal and stuff, and kind of figuring out, it's like, hey, this did happen and it's not my fault on what happened and stuff. So kind of I had that guilty feeling of what happened, and it kind of released after talking to you, that guilt feeling, the heavy feeling of burden, released and stuff.
Well, thank goodness it did release. And it really depends on how traumatic a Dogman encounter is as to how likely the eyewitness is to experience what you did as far as opening the old wound, causing all these problems. But yeah, since your encounter was truly over the top when it comes to trauma, I can totally understand why it affected you that way. But yeah, you are, it seems to me at least, like you're getting better. It's going to take time, like I told you before, but as long as you remember the things that I shared with you, then you will get over this in time to the point where you can think back on this and it definitely won't be nearly as difficult to deal with and think about.
Yes, I agree with you on that.
Yeah, it's just going to take time. If you've had a Dogman encounter and would like to speak with me about it, whether in private or on the show, please go to dogmanencounters.com and submit a report. All right, Abby, please tell us about your encounter now. Give us every last detail that comes to mind.
Okay, this happened in a suburb of Colorado, and I was 16 years old, and the rumor of the school was there was a demonic creature thing that lived in this park. But the thing with the demonic creature cannot go over this bridge. It cannot. So it could chase you, but it literally cannot cross this bridge. So, as a typical teenager, four of my friends and I decided to see if this actually is a real creature and if the rumor was true. So we decided to sneak out on an October day. It just was raining all day, so everything was wet, and the air was crisp, and so all the leaves were on the ground, wet, kind of like all the colors. And this park is kind of weird. It's not a typical park. It's kind of more an open space park, which there is some houses that are like about 5 to 7 houses face the park. And then plus this area is more rural, so there's not much houses or activity around. And the east side, there is this bridge that is a red, kind of worn down bridge, wooden bridge that crosses this creek. And you have to go through this bridge to get into this park. And this park is kitty-cornered against the Front Range Mountains. So the west side of this park is with the mountain, opens up to the mountains. And the north and south is just open space. And this park is really wooded area, like kind of like a forest. A lot of trees, bushes. And once there is no other entrances to this park except for this bridge. You have to cross this bridge to get into the park. And as soon as you go through the bridge, it splits onto mini trails. The trails are just kind of really narrow. It's just enough for a bike to go through. And it's all dirt paths and stuff. So, like, if this happened at between 1 and 3 in the morning, and Josh was in the front, then there's Jesse, then my friend Jolene, and then I was in the back. And we were walking through the forest, and we were walking like about for a good hour or two. Nothing really happening, but of course, Jolene and I are really kind of frightened, and of course, the boys are kind of playing macho teenagers, like, hey, there's nothing to be scared of. I can't believe you're scary cats, but Jolene and I are just kind of was really on edge, and then like an hour or two of walking, then all of a sudden, the forest went silent. Everything went silent. There was no crickets chirping, no owls hooting, no forest sounds at all. Everything just got really eerie quiet. And then, and I got that sense of feeling that energy of the forest changed, and I got a sense of there's something in the forest. I don't know what it is. It's not good. There's something is not good. And I started becoming terrified. But I kept on walking and following my friend, and then all of a sudden I heard a big thud of like heavy footsteps right behind me, and it sounds like something heavy stepping on wet leaves. It wasn't crunchy, but it was wet, like kind of, I can't describe that sound, but you're just something stomping through these leaves. And then all of a sudden I hear like a deep gurgling growl, like, and I slowly looked over my left shoulder, and what I encountered was a huge 12-foot beast. How to describe it was he looked like a cross between a Van Helsing werewolf and a baboon werewolf. Like the Van Helsing is like this creature was ripped. He had the girth, really wide shoulders, like a bodybuilder. He had the front. He was like, you could see all his muscles ripping out, and his arms were at least like good 27 inches or thicker, and you could just see all the muscles and stuff. But he had also the appearance of shagginess, like the werewolf on Baboon. And I saw that gleam of the yellow amber in his eyes, just kind of glowing. His eyes were just glowing. And then all of a sudden I saw his hands were raccoon hands, looked exactly like raccoon hands. Then his fingernails were like about good 5 to 7 inches long. And it reminds me of, it had a little curve at the tip. It kind of reminds me of the manicure ladies get the fake acrylic nails on before they get cut off to the right length of the nails. So it like had that curve and long nails of like a manicure fake nails. And then I saw that, and he was kind of foaming in his mouth a little bit, like kind of like drool, kind of like some drool coming out. And he had that awful smell of kind of like a mix between wet dog and death, like decaying flesh. And he had that kind of mixture of those two scents. And this Dogman was like about a good 6 inches to a foot away from me. I felt like he was kind of hovering over me almost. That's how close he was. And I was so terrified. I could not even move. I couldn't even scream or anything. I could not make out a sound. I just literally was just frozen. And I don't know how I managed, but I started moving in my hands and started pawing at one of my friends, Jonathan. And I kept on pawing at him, and he kind of turned, middle of him turning around. He's like, what is your problem? Why are you being so scary, Captain? All of a sudden, mid-sentence, he looked, and he dropped the flashlight, and then all of us turned around, and everybody froze, and everybody was terrified except Josh, the leader. He's like, "Oh, come on! It's just a person in a costume," and he started mocking. Then I don't know how to describe it, but this whole scene seemed like it was in slow motion, and as soon as then I heard someone say, run for the bridge. And I don't know, it was like something just took off on me like a lightning bolt. And everybody except Josh started running for this bridge, because the rumor was the beast cannot cross the bridge. So we thought the bridge is more for safety. And when we were running and stuff, and I was the last one. I was never a fast runner, but I don't know how to explain it, but it seemed like we went in a time warp, and it seemed like that 1 hour of us walking, it turned into like the bridge was only half a mile away. And so all my friends crossed this bridge, and when we were running, the Dogman was chasing us. He was just doing zigzags and stuff. He was really right on my heels at this time, but he was just doing from one zigzag to another zigzag, just chasing us. And he was how he ran was different. It wasn't like a typical dog or wolf running. It was more like supernatural. He is more like kind of gliding, but he was not gliding. It was kind of it was really full of awe, amazement on how he was so graceful and athletic, how he was moving, but at the same time, he was like right at my heels. And as soon as I went to the bridge, I tripped over the little corner of the bridge, and I face planted myself right on the bridge, and my friends were cheering. It's like, come on, hurry up. And at the same time, my friends were pulling me over this bridge, and at that same time, that Dogman was ripping. His claws were ripping into my pants and my shoes and my socks. His scratches were not like a normal scratch. The best way to describe his scratches are like there's something supernatural, like in how a ghost or an entity scratches you, that little burn. And his scratches are so sharp and precise that it's like razor blades. It's like something like so sharp that there's my shoes and my pants and socks were nothing to him. That it's like him doing like cutting through a hot knife through butter. That's how smooth these scratches were, and these scratches were they kind of were like kind of red and throbbing, but kind of burning at the same time, and it kind of lifted up. And my shoes and my edge of my pants and my socks were covered in blood, and they were just kind of more like scratches, kind of like an entity scratching you. But it was so sharp that it's nothing compared to it. It looked like you put my shoes through the shredder. That's how fast this happened. And it happened within probably 1 second or less. And then all of a sudden, Josh made kind of like a mocking noise. I don't know how he made it, but it's like sounded like a hooting, laughing, kind of hysterical laughing noise. And then all of a sudden, when he made that noise, the Dogman stopped what he was doing, perked up his ears, and looked at that direction. Then in a flash, he was gone. I mean, like, just like not even a couple seconds, he just like, boom, like kind of like, reminding me of like a Superman hero, kind of how he was gone so fast. Then in 2 seconds later, or a couple seconds later, I started hearing Josh screaming, like something is being attacking to him. It's not a scream of fear. Like actually, it sounded like something's tearing into him, like an animal is attacking him. And immediately, my friends and I started running to these houses that face the park. And we're banging on the doors one by one and screaming and hollering and crying, trying to get people's attention. And of course, it's like about 2 or 3 in the morning where nobody's answering the door or anything. And we're just pounding and pounding. And we got to the second to the last house. And this one middle-aged man finally answered the door. And I don't know, we were all trying to talk at once and shouting and trying. And I think we just didn't make much sense. It just came out gibberish because he just kind of looked at us weird. And then I don't know if he thought it's a prank or if when he heard that what we described, immediately he called the cops, and then he shut the door in our face, turned off the porch lights, shut the blinds, and then a few minutes later, the police officers, it was a man and a woman that came in. They had a notebook and like little notebook to take notes and stuff. And we were talking to them as soon as we described what we encountered. They closed the notebook up, put the pen back in their pockets, the front pocket of their shirt, and then they radioed something like a code to them. Then when we were like talking, they just kind of smiled and nodded and did not say much anything else, just like, I remember as a child, I was so frustrated on why they were not taking me seriously. I'm like, well, our friend just got attacked. It's in that force. Go. And they just kind of stood there and just smiling, nodded. And I was so frustrated because I don't know why they were not going into the park and trying to help our friend. And they seemed like they were not really taking us seriously. Then it seemed like a few minutes later, 2 cars came approaching. One they were all black, and they had the windows were so black you cannot see in it. It was a Suburban and a black Tahoe. And these guys came out of these vehicles, and I could tell that they worked for the government, something high official government. And they were dressed in suits, and they reminded me of the Blues Brothers on how they were dressed. And the one officer is really tall and kind of lanky, and the other officer was like about 5'7", 280 pounds. So he was kind of heavier set. And the tall and lanky one, all through this exchange, he kind of more like was kind of outside and listening and observing. But the short one, the stockier one, is more in your face, and he was getting into our face, basically asking questions on like, what do you want to know what we know. He was very precise what he was asking, and we were telling him what we were seeing. And at these men were not welcoming at all. They were very kind of in your face, very intimidating. And basically, the lanky one said, they removed my, he said, you better not say anything, or there's going to be consequences. He did not say that directly like that, but he implied it. And they removed my shoes, my socks. They cut off my pants where the scratches, torn up pieces are. And he basically made it clear, saying I was at Jolene's house, and I was irresponsible, and I've lost my shoes and my socks. And they were very clear that we better not keep our mouths shut and not opening to what we saw to anybody else or anything, or there's going to be consequences. And then they watched us leave, but they did not go search the park right away. They just kind of looking at us, making sure that we were actually leaving the park before they did anything. And afterwards, the aftermath was kind of strange. Everything happened so fast that Jesse, Josh, and Jonathan, and Jolene and I did not have a chance to talk about what we encountered. We just everything just fell apart. Jolene, her parents all of a sudden Jolene and her parents moved away, like just middle of the night. They stopped what they're doing and they moved away. And Jonathan went into military school, and Jesse basically, I don't know if this is true, but he quote unquote ran away across the state to meet this other girl that he liked. So everybody left, and I was the only one. And what happened? What happened with Josh? Nobody heard anything from Josh. Like it was just like everybody. He disappeared from the face of the planet. The only thing I heard that they found a bloody shirt that's ripped up in the top of a tree, and I don't know what happened with Josh, and nobody opened up about him. It was like everybody was tight mouth closed, like he did not exist at all. And so I just kept quiet because I did not want anything to happen to me or anything like that. Those men in black, scared the pants out of me. I did not, like, I was afraid that they were going to tattletale on me and say, hey, I'm not supposed to be out. So I was afraid being in trouble with my parents and everybody and stuff. So I just kept quiet all these years. And I did not know what a dogman was. Actually, when you hear werewolves or dogman, I thought it was more of the people with the over hairy appearance, with a lot of hair. So I did not believe in them at all. And then when I met my husband, and then I heard the term dogman and other people describe, and I'm like, yes, that's what I experienced. And the two major things about this dogman I remember, I cannot get out of my head, is those eyes and those hands. I don't know what it is, but those eyes and his hands are really ingrained into me. And so ever since, I had a fear of being in the dark by myself, because I'm kind of waiting to see those yellow eyes peering over the corner and chasing me again. And even though at the time when I was a kid, I thought that me crossing over the bridge was something that saved me from this dogman. But now as an adult, I think that's ridiculous. There's nothing about this magical about this bridge. And also, I realized that the dogman was just teasing me, kind of toying with me, kind of like a cat and the mouse. Like he was just kind of wanting to play and kind of scare me and my friends, which he accomplished. And I know if he wanted to really attack me or my friends, he would have done it with no problem at all. And I think his intent was just to scare us. And I think Josh kind of overstepped the boundaries of taunting him. And I think that's why he got attacked or quote unquote disappear.
I think you've summed it up nicely. Yep, I'm pretty sure that's what was behind it. I hate the fact that happened to Josh, but like we talked about in our conversations, unfortunately he acted very foolish. And speaking of how he acted, there's something about all that I just don't understand. If it was a 12-foot tall dog man, how could he have thought that it was a man in a costume? Because a 6-foot tall man, a 7-foot tall man does not fit into a 12-foot tall costume.
Exactly. I have no idea. And also, it cannot be like a costume with the muscles ripping out. I have no idea why he thought it was somebody in a costume trying to scare us. I don't have no idea what he was thinking.
Well, some people are so skeptical that they'll just grab onto any idea, any theory to explain away what's right in front of him. And it sounds to me like that's what Josh was doing. He just wouldn't accept what was right in front of him. And unfortunately, he paid the ultimate price. That's all there is to it. It seems to me like you've had as much trouble dealing with your encounter because you unfortunately have blamed yourself over the years for what happened to him. I'd say almost as much as the trauma of the actual encounter itself. Which side of this has given you more trouble? The blame or the trauma from the encounter itself?
I think I kind of got the blame for the encounter is kind of dual-sided because I blame myself on what happened because I associated myself with the attack, but also I blamed myself because I know what happened to Josh, and I kind of kept my mouth shut and I could not get anybody to I kind of feel like I kind of kept that hidden from what really happened to him, what his death was. And also the trauma as well with the beast. And because it's like all through your life, everybody says, oh, the boogeyman does not exist, but it does exist. So that kind of that realization of the boogeyman does exist, and plus knowing how someone died or disappeared, the true story, and you're kind of both of the guilt and the trauma behind it.
You're right. Yeah, you saw it with your own two eyes. The boogeyman does exist. That's a fact. I'm so sorry you had to go through all of this. Holy cow, that's horrible. It really is. And like we talked about in our second conversation there, you had no control over Josh's actions. He acted really foolishly, but that's on him. You couldn't have stopped him from acting that way. If you would have tried to stop him from acting that way, he probably would have doubled down and acted out even more than what he was already acting like. So please don't blame yourself for that. You were put in a very difficult situation. You handled it the best way you knew how. I think you deserve a lot of credit for how well you handled it. That was just a tough situation.
Thank you so much for those kind words. And it was a difficult situation. And I think that's one of the reasons why I decided to listen to my husband and telling people actually what happened. So knowing that his death is not just a disappearance or anything. Yes, and he did act foolishly, but it's just that had to deal with that guilt and that trauma as well.
Well, like I said, too, I mean, if the agency that you're dealing with, I'll just keep it like that, didn't want that cat let out of the bag, there was nothing you could do to get that cat released out of that bag. So we're back to you just doing the best you can to dealing with that experience, and the best you can do is the best you can do. You're not to blame for any of this. You really aren't. And it's going to take time, but like I told you in that second conversation, I just hope this really sinks into your subconscious so you actually can move forward and you do stop blaming yourself, because that's not going to do any good for you.
Yes, and also, like one of the why it's so traumatic is because even how my other friends left and we got relocated or whatever, I just don't, a big question in my mind was, did they open their mouth and tell people, and then that's why that agency removed them? So, to keep it hidden, like a big cover up. And that's one of the reasons why I was so afraid to open up at first on what really happened with me, because I don't want to put my family in danger. But after discussing them with you, I kind of feel more at peace about the whole situation.
Well, that's great. I'm glad you do. Yeah, like I told you years ago, especially back around when this happened, it seemed like the men in black were ready to do anything to keep all this under wraps. But as time has gone by, they've allowed people to come forward and have YouTube channels and other podcasts to focus on this whole phenomenon. If they had a problem with these encounters being shared, like we're doing right now, then I would have never been allowed to do this and have hundreds and hundreds of guests come on week after week and share their Dogman encounters. And if I'm wrong, please, someone in the Men in Black, let me know. But yeah, I mean, it definitely seems to be that way. And people who do what I do, they've been contacted by the Men in Black, or if not the Men in Black, then government operatives who monitor this sort of thing. And when they've tried to come forward with evidence like photos, videos that were too good, they've been warned, okay, don't do that. You're crossing the line. But if you want to talk about this until you're blue in the face, go ahead and talk about it. That's fine. But don't cross that line as far as coming forward with evidence. So yeah, it just seems to me like as long as you don't focus on trying to prove their existence, then the government doesn't have any problem with you. It wasn't that way years ago, again, just for clarity. But now it seems like they don't care at all if you talk about this ad nauseum.
I totally agree with you. And I'm so thankful for channels like you and the other YouTube videos that people are coming out and talking about this. It makes me feel like I'm less crazy, because I was afraid to open up because what happened to me, it was so absurd and crazy and out there that I was afraid to being locked up in a mental asylum.
Yeah, I can understand why you had those concerns, but it's normal when you're a Dogman eyewitness, especially an experiencer of a very traumatic encounter the way you are, to have those concerns. But everything's okay. Everything has worked out just fine. Maybe not for Josh, unfortunately, but with regards to you, because we have no control over what happened to him, but we can focus on what you're doing, what you're dealing with, and everything. You're doing fine. I understand you're still trying to work your way through all this, and it is going to take time. You didn't contact me until just recently, so the healing hasn't even started until just recently. But it sounds like you are putting the pieces together, and you are getting better. So as long as we can say that, then that's definitely a good thing. It really is. I'm wondering, though, Abby, when you get into bed at night now, not back then, but when you crawl into bed now, you lay down, you get settled, what goes through your mind? Do you go there every night after you get into bed and get settled? Or some nights, do you not even think about it?
Actually, after the encounter, and even to this day, I start having really frequent night terrors and nightmares. And even right now, I still have nightmares and stuff, but I feel like after the second conversation, it's not as intense. But it seems like ever since I had that encounter, I experienced really bad night terrors and nightmares following that.
Well, I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah, when I was a child, after it was so bad that I don't remember how I did it. I don't know what I did or whatever. All I remembered was I woke up and I was pulling the stuffings out of my mattress, and I had that flight or fight mode on, and I was just terrified. And I'm like, how did I open my mattress up and pulling the stuffings out? And I think, like you said, the healing is starting to heal and starting to begin. And I just and I think that nightmares will go away eventually when I'm starting to heal.
Well, as far as the nightmares go, it sounds to me like that might be your biggest issue right now. Not when you're in your waking hours, but when you actually go to sleep. Is that accurate?
Yes. Yes, when I go to sleep, it is. My nightmares is more of my biggest issue. My husband does believe in Dogman. He never experienced anything like Dogman or anything like that, but he's a big believer. And when we go in the mountains, he is more terrified of Dogman, counting Dogman, than I am when I'm hiking. And I just think it's kind of silly, because you think I will be more terrified of a creature coming out of me when I'm hiking during daylight time, but it's kind of quite the opposite. I get more of the traumatized at night when I go to sleep.
Well, I think I know how to handle the nightmares and night terrors that you've been dealing with. I'm going to put you into contact with someone who specializes in teaching people how to do what's called lucid dreaming. Lucid dreaming is basically the art of being able to take control of your dreams. When you go to sleep, when you dream, the part of your brain that controls your ability to rationalize and reason, it switches off. So that's why, you ever wonder why you wake up from a dream, some crazy dream, and you say, wow, that didn't make sense at all. What was going on with all that? Well, that's because that part of your brain that handles your ability to rationalize, to reason, has switched off. Because of that, that's why you experience so many crazy things when you dream or have nightmares. But if you learn how to do what's called lucid dreaming, you can, through various techniques, realize, okay, I'm having a nightmare. I'm going to take control of this nightmare. And with these lucid dreaming techniques, you can take control of what's going on in your nightmare, and you can give yourself super abilities. You can be as strong as Supergirl, or you could fly. You can do all sorts of things. Turn your hands into weapons. You can do anything. Make a Dogman tiny as a mouse. So by doing that, by taking control of your nightmare or night terror, depending on which one it is that you have at the time, when you take control like that, all of a sudden it's not a problem anymore. So having said all that, like I said, I am going to put you into contact with someone who should be able to teach you how to do that. I really hope that's going to nip that issue in the bud.
I really appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome. Glad to do it. If it was 12 feet tall, that's almost as tall as a freeway overpass. If it was that tall, but only about a foot behind you or less, was it looming over you?
It felt like it was towering over me. It felt exactly like it was towering over me. Like, he was so close that I could just lift up my arm and touch him if I wanted to. And to be really thinking about it, I think he was kind of leaning over me a little bit, but it was just he was so close that I could actually feel his hot breath on me.
Ew. That's not good at all. You saw its teeth glinting in the moonlight. How big were they?
They were like about, he had canine teeth, kind of like how a dog like a wolf's teeth. I feel like his canines were like about, I don't really remember that specifically how big they were, but I just remember they kind of reminded me of like a wolf's teeth, but they were pretty large.
Oh, I'm sure they were. You said they were pretty large. Did it look like they were too big for it to be able to comfortably close its mouth?
No. He was kind of like pushing him out a little bit. So it's kind of hard for me to judge on, but everything of him was like really massive and proportionate. His legs are kind of like a dog legs, you know, how they go on, in his hands were massive, and his feet were really big. It was like at least two of my feet together. That's how big and massive everything with him is, just massive.
Would you describe it as having dog-like foot pads, or were its pads more human-like?
Dog-like. His pads were more like dog-like. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like a big wolf, like a dire wolf, or like his hind legs in his pads were more like a dire wolf's.
Yeah, that's what I would expect. And a 12-foot tall Dogman, yeah, their foot pads can be bigger than a dinner plate. They can be huge. Again, especially with it being 12 feet tall, such a huge specimen. Wow, Abby, I can only imagine what it must have been like for you to go through all that. No one should have to deal with anything like that. That is just too intense. Now, you described the Dogman as gliding as it was running behind you. Could you hear his footfalls?
No, you cannot. You cannot hear his footfalls at all. It was just quiet. It was really eerie quiet. Like there was no rustling of the leaves or anything. It was just so quiet while he was chasing us. And he did sound like he was panting, but not really panting. It sounded like that heavy breathing, like that dog, like it was going to attack kind of sound. But how he was doing it, chasing us, it was more like it was effortless. Like it was just like he was so athletic that this is just nothing compared to what his ability is. And what I experienced with him is he's not, it's like, he's not an entity, like he's not a ghost or spirit. He's not a demon. He's not an angel or anything like that. But he is not an animal as well. He's kind of like between. And what I heard someone mentioned, and I totally agree that I do think he's part of the Nephilim, where the giants, or back in the day, biblical 8 day. And that's the best way I could describe him. It's kind of like he is like hybrid. There is something hybrid about him. He's not an animal, but he's not an entity, but he is supernatural in a way, if that makes sense.
No, that does make sense. And as more and more time has gone by, I'm more and more convinced that Sasquatch Dogman just might be Nephilim. So, hey, you might be onto something there. You described him as having long nails, not claws. Were his nails flat in profile, or were they round?
They were kind of flat, and it reminds me of exactly like how lady had a manicurist, like kind of like those fake acrylic nails, they glue on your fingers, and right before they cut them or design them and file them. It kind of reminds me of like that.
I heard you mention that they looked like that, kind of like a lady who had long press-on nails. But I just wanted to ask you again for clarity, because there's a reason why animals that use their claws for making a living, there's a reason why their claws are round in profile and not flat like that. If claws are flat like that, like a press-on nail, they've got no strength. If you swat at something, there's really no strength there to keep those nails from bending backwards and snapping. But if they have a round profile, especially if they're curved and round, like a grizzly bear has for claws, then there's strength there, a lot of strength. All claws are bone anchored, so that gives strength at the root. But I just wanted to check with you just for clarity, just to make sure I understood.
It's kind of like those, kind of like a bear claw, kind of. It is, but it's like kind of curves around, at the tip and long and stuff. So it's like rounded, like at the edge, but like at the tip, at the base, then it kind of goes out a little bit. So it is like, it's not just flat like nails, but it's kind of reminded me of like a bear's claws at the base and kind of goes out. Does that make sense?
I think I'm following you. Yeah, if that's the case, then that would give them extra strength. So that would make sense. Let's talk about those scratches it gave you. How long did they take to heal?
Like about 3 days to a week to heal. And it's not like a typical scratch. It's more like kind of like if like an entity that scratches you. Kind of the sharp, kind of flares up a little bit, kind of swollen a little bit. So it's not like a normal scratch like you get from on a nail or anything like that. It's more of the supernatural scratches that's kind of really red and puffy. And it had that burning sensation for like about 3 days.
Wow, that's horrible. It really is. How deep were those scratches?
Oh, I don't think they were really that deep. It was more like superficial and more than anything else. There was some blood, but it was like kind of couple drops of blood. kind of like enough just to bleed just a tiny bit. But it was not really deep. It was more of the superficial.
Well, thank goodness they weren't that deep then. Did anything that you put on the scratches help ease your discomfort, and what did you put on them?
I just put Neosporin on and just kind of put like a cold compress on it. I didn't really it didn't need much attention to it because, like I said, it's just more of the superficial. I just kind of cleaned it up with more or less with a wet rag. And plus, I didn't want to draw attention to my scratches with my parents or anybody else. But it was more, the best way to describe the scratches is like an entity just really came and attacked you. So there was a little bit blood, but not really. It's kind of was more red and puffy, but there was some blood, but it was just kind of a couple drops, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. Yeah, you really went through it that night. You really did. What color was that Dogman?
He was jet black, and he was all jet black, but he had, like, on his back, he had some dark brown mixed with it, kind of like, it looked like a little bit of a brindle, a little bit on his back. But it was more like just pure black, except for a few spots of brindle, kind of brownish pattern on his back.
Well, that's a unique pattern. How long was his fur?
It was like about a couple inches long. It was more really he was kind of shaggy, kind of. He wasn't really hairy, but the best way to describe his fur is the werewolf and Bad Moon. That's exactly like how his face and his fur looked.
Well, that's a good description. That does paint a picture. Did you ever see a tail?
Honestly, I don't remember. I can't remember that, to be honest. I don't want to say yes or no because I really don't remember if I did see a tail or not.
Oh, that's all right. No, you noticed a lot of things, a lot of interesting details, so I think you should be commended. When you finally crossed the bridge and rejoined your friends, how far behind you would you say Josh was at that point?
He was like about good, like half a mile to a mile. It was more or less like there was just like in the forest, kind of like you could see the top of the trees, and it seemed like he was in the thick of the trees. So he was like where the starting point was. I don't think he even moved from the starting point.
He was way back. Yeah, when you were talking about how this all played out, I heard you say that it was about half a mile from where you started running to where you ran over the bridge, but I wasn't sure if Josh for some time followed you or if he just stayed put. So that's why I wanted to ask you about that. But are there any other physical features of that Dogman that you can recall that you could share with us? Like, how tall were its ears?
Yeah, his ears were like sharp and pointy, and his ears were like about a good inch long and stuff. And one of them, he kind of had those ears of the Van Helsing ears, kind of sharp and pointing like that. So they're not really overgrown and stuff, but just kind of sharp, like kind of sharp and pointy. And he had his nose was not long. It was like kind of like short, like kind of like the Bad Moon werewolf. And his teeth, and so it's kind of like his features, his physical features on how his body is like the Van Helsing, but like his face, his like teeth and his fur and how his eyes were like the Bad Moon werewolves.
Those really good descriptions. You obviously saw it from behind, so I'm wondering, did you ever notice a mane?
No, I didn't. There's no mane.
What about its posture? Was it more hunched over, forward, or upright?
He was upright. He was upright when he was on top of us, but when he was chasing us, he was on his fours chasing us. And it kind of reminded me of when he was chasing us. If I look back at it, it was more like a dog playing fetch or something, kind of like playing around, kind of chasing. That's how he was, kind of his demeanor was. But at the time when I was a kid, it was like something was so terrifying chasing you. So it's like it's a different perspective as I got older.
No, that makes sense. Time does change things. How tall was the Dogman on all fours as it was coming after you?
Gosh, I want to say like about 6 feet or more. I don't really remember the specifics like that, but he was massive coming back. He kind of reminded me of like a dire wolf when he was chasing, because he was so humongous and on all fours itself. He was clearly over 6 feet tall when he was chasing us.
That's what I would expect from a 12-footer. If it's coming after you on all fours, I'd expect it to be at least 6 feet tall when you consider how long their arms are. So that all fits. In the years since your encounter, Abby, have you suffered more trauma from the encounter itself or the ominous warning that the men in black gave you?
I'm saying when I was a kid, it was actually a mixture of both. When I was the warning of the men in black really scared me. Well, I was never a kid who got into trouble or trying to test the boundaries. So just the thought of me being in trouble with my parents scared me. And then you have these men kind of intimidating you and stuff as a child. It kind of did a number on me and stuff. And it kind of led me to the point where I'm like, I was afraid to open up because I just didn't know about the safety of my family or whatever. But also, I was very traumatized by the encounter itself, because I don't know if you ever had a nightmare when you're a child that something's chasing you, and at the very end of the chase, you close the door and then you wake up in bed. It was kind of like that, but I just realized that boogeyman does exist, and the thing that was chasing you, it did exist. It was not a dream. It was not a nightmare. So just the fact that I came across something in real life of something that is chasing us, and it kind of really is traumatizing itself. Just the fact of the huge beast, like it was what I encountered was so terrifying and scary. I when I hear people wanting to chase Dogman and try and find them, I'm like, you do not want to see that. That Dogman was the most terrifying thing I have ever experienced and seen with my own eyes.
Yeah, when I hear people make comments about how they would give anything to have a Dogman encounter, I instantly think, be careful what you wish for, because there's so many people out there who have had that encounter, this encounter, that encounter, who would do anything to go back and just make it not happen. So, like I said, be very careful what you wish for. You're a sensitive, Abby. Do you think that might in some way have predisposed you to having that encounter, or do you think it didn't play a part in it at all?
Well, I'm kind of wondering about the same thing. That's one of the reasons why I think I handled how the encounter itself, because I am a sensitive and I've came across different entities like human spirits, demons, angels, and I've learned, like, when I do encounter them, I just like, oh, okay, it's kind of like you watching something on TV. You know they're there, it's there, but it's like it's not going to come and hurt you or whatever. But I do believe that maybe I don't know if there is a relation about me being a sensitive and I came encountered, but I think when I was a kid, like everybody, people experience when they seek to play with fire, they will get burned. And we were seeking if this creature did exist, and it actually, we got burned. It did. We found out the rumor was true, that there was a creature that lived in that park.
That rumor that you were just telling us about, it makes me wonder, back then when you were in school, do you remember any talk about satanic rituals going on in that park? Because if they were conducting satanic rituals, especially on a regular basis, it makes you wonder if they might have opened up a door they shouldn't have opened up.
That's a good question. And I do think they had some satanic rituals in that park. We did come across on another basis a couple animal bones scattered in a certain pattern. So I cannot say if there was any rituals taking place, but it was kind of weird to see the bones scattered in a certain pattern, how it was. So it could be they could open a portal or whatever. I don't know. And that is how the rumor started, is probably someone came across a ritual or something, or like a couple bones or or artifacts or whatever, and then they came across, made up a story about this and that bridge.
Yeah, that might be what's behind it. Of course, all we can do is guess about that. We're never going to know, but it does make you wonder nonetheless. Well, it's about time for us to get out of here, Abby, but before we do you have any closing comments you want to put out there for us?
Yes, if you have encountered anything like this, do not hesitate and talk to somebody about it, because it does wonders.
I'm so glad this has done wonders for you. It's a process, and like I told you, once you have a chance to see all the positive feedback from the listeners, I think that's going to pay huge dividends as well. But please remember, you're never going to be alone to deal with this. You're always going to have help. If you ever need help from me, just reach out to me and let me know, and of course I'll be there for you. But having said that, thanks again for coming on the show to share that experience. I really appreciate it, and of course I hope you have a great night.